There's this great quote that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said many, many years ago. He said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." And if the stats are right, he's right. There's less poverty, there's less hunger, there's less struggle in the world, there's more unity, there's more hope, there's more equality. But there's still a long way we have to go. One of the many areas we have a long way to go on is how we honor and uplift women, especially women leaders, and especially women clergy and women church planters. That's why I'm inviting on the NP2Cast my friend, colleague, woman planter and pastor extraordinaire, Reverend Angela Roberson. In part one of our interview, we got to hear about Angie and get to know her a little bit, her church, and the unique advantages and struggles she has as a woman church planter here in Louisiana. In part two, the final part of my time with Angie, we're going to talk about all the tea. So get your teacup. She's going to spill some tea about the advantages and struggles she has as a woman church planter, but also she's going to give some encouragement to some of the women church planters we have out there, the ones that don't even know they exist yet. I see you, she sees you, we see you, and we want to give you some encouragement. So without any further ado, my final bit of time with Angie, and I'm so happy I get to share this with you because my name is Sam, that would make you you, and this is the NP2Cast, your roadmap to the Reformation. Let's go! You had to even do your undergraduate degree to even think about going to seminary, and it's just planning a church is a lot broader. There's a lot more people that's able to do it than they think, and that's one of the things that I think is really unique about you. Now, to be fair, I think it does take a unique person, because I think you and I are both 8s. On the Enneagram, and I think it's I particularly think it takes a little 8 energy to pull off all that. So to just be like, everybody else is like, why are you planting a church and your undergraduate degree and being a wife and a mother and and it's like whatever.
Oh yeah, I mean, people would always ask like, how do you do it all? And I'm like, sometimes I don't. I failed some classes. They were absolutely nice where like I was on my kitchen floor, like I can't do it all. You have your days where like everything seems like it's falling apart and you're not spinning any plates, but then you have days where like you're spinning every plate. And I think that that's kind of the nature of being in relationship with God. You're continually having to practice humility and be humbled and be reminded that like it is not in your strength you're going to be able to do this. Yeah. It's going to be in your weakness. And that's how we develop a dependence on God. So there were a lot of learning curves. And there were some really ugly points in time. But I mean, we made it so far.
Yeah, you're still making it.
Still making it. Still here. Still showing up.
Well, here's the thing that another thing I really wanted to dig into. You like I said before, you are the only chick planter, the only female planter in Louisiana right now, and which I don't know if you're so busy just like going. I don't know if you ever thought about that, and if you ever noticed that there was any. I already know that being female clergy is difficult. I mean, some of the things that I've heard not from the internet, but from people like you and several other of the female clergy in our conference, and even across the nation, some of the stuff y'all have had to, like some of the stuff just basically that's even said to you is I'm like, and you didn't punch this person? But because I probably would have, and I'm a pacifist. I would have been like, here's my pacifist badge, boom, put me back on. But so I'm sure you have some of those stories, but I would imagine that it's even exacerbated by you being a planter as well. So in saying all that, what do you think some of the struggles and the challenges of being a female planter is in your experience?
So I would say first, because I thought about this question a lot, because when you emailed me, I'm going to ask you this question. I thought, do I feel like there are any disadvantages I faced as as a female church planter, or really just as a pastor. And I've had to think about that a lot. I did want to say that while I may be the only female church planter on the rolls, there's a lot of female church planters out there working side by side with some of our male church planters, the spouses of our male church planters, and the women they bring alongside of them. There are a lot of women out there just killing it in ministry right now. So while I'm the only one on the rolls, there are a lot of female church planters. They just might not be called that yet.
Yeah. I would like to change that.
So as far as I wrote a couple of them down, that one, I think early on, and this is an advantage, I think early on I was given more permission to fail than some of the male pastors.
Interesting. Oh, well, that's good to know.
Now, part of that I don't know that was gender specific. That may have been because I was uncredentialed. It could have been the way that the table kind of evolved. Like, I didn't go to the conference and ask permission to start this, and neither did the pastor I was working with at the time. We just decided this is something that needed to happen at this church and started that work. And it wasn't until Gloria Fowler came to Louisiana that she pulled me aside and said, I believe in what you're doing and want to pull you into this team that we have here. Before that, I think everybody else was just kind of like, they're doing something over there, but, not too worried about it. Once I got onto the team, I would say they didn't keep as close of an eye on me as maybe some of the other ones had more at risk. They had to find buildings. They had to find, they just had more challenges in that way than I did. Mine was, how many people do you have a part of your launch team? What's your plan? They checked on me and those things. But for the most part, I think everybody just figured that if it succeeded, that's lagniappe. Like if it succeeded, that's great. Against all odds, they did it. But if it failed, they had kind of a weird start. She wasn't actually a pastor yet. So I think they were more willing to say, if it failed, not a big deal. We think that we can still use you in the future. But like if this fails, so I didn't feel, and that might be also like you mentioned the 8. I didn't have the fear of failure that I think I've seen in some of like the male church planters, where like they felt the pressure of needing to succeed in their plant. And I just didn't feel like that. I just always felt like God was going to do this or God wasn't. And that was okay either way. So I would call that a little bit of an advantage. And so I don't know if that was gender specific or just kind of the weird way.
Specific.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know which one it was, but that is something that I just kind of noticed. And I would say one of the disadvantages to being a female church planter pastor is people always assume I'm a nurturer. So they want me to be like, I have the privilege of serving with Patty Hewitt, and she is the most nurturing person on the planet. And we balance each other so well because she does such a good job in that space. And it's just not one of my strengths. Am I caring? Am I compassionate? Absolutely. I care about people. That's why I'm in ministry. But is it always my like natural response to physically hold somebody's hand or like, and I'm a crier too. So it's not even like that I don't show emotion. It's just, I'm not as naturally nurturing as I think some pastors are. Very, very good in that space. And I watch them in awe because I'm like, oh, I would have botched that. In fact, the first time I was ever asked to go pray with somebody in the hospital before surgery, I didn't even end up praying. Like left without praying. Yep. Like I went there, and the way that I'd been prepped for it was like, they're going to be in this waiting room. So I pictured like a waiting room, like a lobby, right? And it's only going to be the two of them. Well, no, like they have the bays where you wait to go back for surgery.
Yeah.
And so there's, I was told there's only going to be 2 people. So I go in there, there's like 6 people in this one bay. So I'm totally disoriented. I've got my work bag. And so I like set it down. And by the time I'm like, okay, because I'm thinking, I don't know these people. Like, do I invite them to pray with me? Do I have them hold hands? Do I ever put a hand on it? Like, never done this before. Don't know. And so finally I like muster up what I'm going to do. And then the nurse came in to take her back and I didn't get to pray.
I've been there a few times. I wonder if it is a unique 8 thing, or because that's another thing we haven't really talked about. Is another reason that you're unique is that you're not. Well, I guess I'd say everybody has the shepherd teacher gift in some capacity, and of course the Holy Spirit can up those numbers up when and where she sees fit, but you are definitely much more of the apostolic prophetic kind of thing, which once again I don't think it's unusual in females, but I do. It's definitely something that just as us as a society, and definitely just like you mentioned, just in churches, it's like, no, you're a woman, yeah, you must be nurturing. And it's like,
yeah, and so one of the things that I try to do in my church is I try to tell as many people as possible, that pastoral care is not my natural gift. So my goal is to have as many people around me as possible so that our people are cared for well and do not feel forgotten, because it's not always going to be my first instinct. I'm a doer. Like, I'll do something for you, but I'm not always like you're never going to get a thank you card in the mail from me. I will never, I will write it and it will get put in a bag and it'll never get sent. Like that's just, I want to be that person. I love those people. Like I love their heart and their intentionality and like their purposeful attention to people. And I wish I were more like them.
Yeah. Well, I kind of had to deal with that myself too, and be like, well, I'm just me, and
Yeah.
And because I've seen it, when I've needed to be pastoral, it happens. But
Oh yeah.
sometimes I think people like you and I think sometimes they forget that people forget that you need us in a crisis. This is what we're built for.
Right.
Is when you need to change up a lot of things, when you need to handle some real stuff, that's what we're for. And trust me, you're gonna appreciate us then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unless it's personally traumatizing to me, and then I completely shut down and all of you out.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Good point. What other things have you noticed, you think? Advantages? Strengths?
Honestly, as a church planter, I haven't really experienced any challenges from being a female planter. I mean, I have never apologized for taking up space anywhere. So I don't think I've ever given people permission to set me up in a disadvantaged way. I see a way forward and I move towards that. And I rarely ask permission from other people as I move that way. So I haven't, that I know of. There might be things that I've had a disadvantage of, and I don't even know that that's what happened.
Yeah. Well, I guess sometimes I don't want to, as I think about it, I don't want to use the word disadvantage as much as like challenge.
Yeah.
Like there's been challenge and then there's the opposite of challenge, I guess. But
one of the challenges maybe it can be lonely. There aren't a lot of other women who are doing what I'm doing that I can talk to about what it's like to, be a woman pastor and have a husband who works a secular job and is gone all the time. While you're trying to manage, doctor's appointments and kids and the home and all of those things.
And school. Because you haven't stopped going to school either.
I've been in school full time, since this whole shindig started. So, but I don't know that those are necessarily unique challenges to just women now. I mean, you see so many more, family dynamics. It's especially in the
Oh,
Methodist church. You don't see, it's just like a male planter with a stay-at-home wife that, that she's going to take care of women's and children's ministry. Like that's not really what you
yeah.
see in our conference. So
No.
I don't know that that's unique to being a woman or if it's just unique to being a planter and having a family.
Mm.
Um, but I would say it's hard to not know other women who are doing what I'm doing and have the same experiences.
Mm.
So there's not a lot of chance to like talk to other women and like trade war stories.
Yeah. I wonder though, because really that's one of the yet another reason why I wanted to have you on and talk about it was because I know that we have a ton of women in this conference that are planters that have the
Mhm.
capability, and they just have never heard or seen that somebody could do that, um, and so like maybe tying this in is like it, what do you wish now that because there's yeah what do you wish somebody would have told you like before you got into it, whether you want to look at it as a female, whether you want to look at it as clergy, whether you want to look at it as a
Mhm.
planter, what do you wish that you look back at it now and you're like, oh, if somebody would have told me this, that would have been a game changer.
Yeah, I would say number one, if you plant something, it becomes a part of you in a way that even with the best of boundaries, you don't realize. So when something goes wrong, global pandemic,
Mm,
some of your people get angry at something that you said, whatever it is. It is a crushing blow, not just to what you built, but to really to who you are, because
mm,
when you plant something, you put your heart and soul in it. So when something's wrong with it, it really just crushes you inwardly.
mhm.
Um, and I think I read all the books about healthy leadership. I did all of those things.
Yeah.
But when you genuinely put blood, sweat, and tears into something and into people, and you let each other down, your hearts get broken along the way. It can leave you shaken. And so I wish I would have been aware of that. I don't think it would have changed anything about how I did it, but I wish I would have heard the stories of other people who had walked that road.
Mm,
Um, because I think at certain points in the pandemic, it really kind of shocked me to my core and surprised me and left me, I think, feeling more vulnerable than I ever thought that I would.
mm.
Um, so, I would want anyone that's especially female, I don't know about especially, but I would tell any church planter that just know that when you do this, you are going to put yourself into this, whether you want to or not.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a good point. I never thought about that, but um, uh, and I'll spill some tea. I don't care. I remember one of the things that people told me when I first started, and maybe you heard it too. Tell me if you did.
Okay.
You can't be friends
Oh,
with. Yeah,
mhm.
you've heard that.
Oh, yeah, and I call BS on that.
Yeah, yeah. It's like because I mean, now to be fair, I get it. I
Mhm,
get it. Like for example, one of the ways I get it is like one of my mentors. He was friends with these some of his core people in his church, and it was a weird mix of friendship and being a pastor and discipling and hanging out. But then when it came down to like one of them has a drinking problem, where's the authority? Are you
mhm.
friend? Are you pastor? So, I mean, like on
Yeah.
stuff like that, I get it. But at the same time, and I think you're vibing with me when I say this, it's like ministry is not a job. It's a
Mhm.
relationship, and especially like how does somebody like decouple their purpose for life from their emotions and relationships. I have yet to figure it out.
Well, and I don't know how you tell people to live in community, to do life together, do all those things, but you're not willing to do that with them.
Mm,
My children are in youth group with these teenagers. They're doing life together. Like there's no telling what my kids are telling their small group leaders about me.
Yeah.
Like to me, if we were going to show up, we were going to show up authentically. And if we're going to show up authentically, then we're going to do that in relationship. And, does it mean that it doesn't get messy? Absolutely not. There have been messy places along the way. But I would rather it that way, than feel like I had kind of a clean slate as the people's pastor, but no one ever really knew me.
Yeah.
Or me them.
Yeah. Well, I remember I can't remember if I told you this or not, but that's something that it came to me last week, and I know this will probably resonate with you just because you're, kind of cut from the same cloth. Is like, I would rather have honest conflict than dishonest harmony.
Amen.
Yeah. And it's like, and now you don't want to have a fight, just have a fight, but
For sure.
or just, but at the same time, if we're not just, it's not just a transfer of information that we're given to people. We're looking for life transformation. And one of the best things to do that is to show your life transformed, but also how your life is not yet transformed.
Yes.
It's like all the sanctification, the process of sanctification. And I know that's one of the things that I've seen a lot of people connect with you about is not only because there's a difference. There's authenticity, which I think is easy to do for someone like you, because really that's how you live in the world. That's who you are. But I know what makes it hard is being vulnerable, which is different.
Yes.
But I think when you put those two together, it's there's a whole new level of respect that you get from people, at least in my experience.
And I would absolutely, there's respect, and there's also, it gives them permission to be honest about who they are. I don't have a lot of I'm not supposed to say that in front of the pastor. People kind of reveal their hearts, and does that come out in a sermon eventually? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I don't think anyone ever feels, and I would hope not, shame as a result of that. It's more, I think we're honest with each other about who we are and where we are. Yeah. So there's that. And then the other thing I thought of, what I would want to tell really women who are considering going into ministry in general is to be careful what advice you get from male leaders. And I say this because I had a couple of male leaders who I really respect and love tremendously. But I remember we were doing this like training exercise where, there's a school board fighting with some people at a high school, and how can a pastor help these two places, meet in the middle. And the male that was leading it, he's very tall. He has a deep, voice, and he has a commanding presence. So, he used that when they were getting a little out of control, he stood up and calmed everybody down and then brought them into a soft space. So after the class, I asked him and the other male leader, how would a woman, I don't have a baritone voice, and I'm only all of 5'5".
Yeah.
How would I in that space command presence among other men who outsize me? And so me using that voice isn't going to get anybody's attention. How would you suggest I navigate that? And they both kind of shared a look, and one of them told me, be very careful playing the woman card.
Whoa.
The moment you share the woman card, the moment that you reveal the woman card, you lose respect. And that was the advice given to me. And I assured them right then and there, I know how to handle myself in a room full of men. I'm good. Because at that point I realized, you don't even understand what I'm asking. We're not speaking the same language here, because you've never had to be a woman in a crowd of men. So I kind of left it at that. And now, that's something that you learn. You can, if you're a woman, you can learn a lot more by a certain look that you give and a certain silence that you command. That you don't have to have that deep voice, but that's something that you learn along the way. But be careful in the advice that some men will give you on what is an appropriate usage of the woman card.
Wow. That is yikes. See, that's just some of the stuff you would think that as many different things I've heard from y'all about what people have said to you, I would get used to it, but I still don't get used to it. It's just like, what? I'm just trying to think of myself. I would never in a million years say something like that. I mean, I don't even think like that, but
yeah, I mean, well, and I know what they were saying. I know exactly what they're saying, that the moment I start making excuses for things because I'm a girl, like no one wants to welcome me into the space. I know what they're saying. But really what they're saying is they don't want to welcome me in the space if I make it abundantly clear that I'm the only woman in the room.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I think if I said that, they would both be brokenhearted to hear it. So, I don't pass judgment on that because I think that they were totally unaware of what they were saying. But I think there's some truth to that and how some male leadership will try to teach women how to handle themselves. And so I would just tell women, trust your instincts, handle yourself, and know your own woman card. I mean,
know your own woman card.
Don't ask permission to use it.
Yeah. Like you would need to anyway.
Yeah.
Well, before we get going, you've obviously dropped some good gold for male and female alike out there. One of the things I always like to cap things off with is I don't think it's a secret anymore, and if it is, you're the first. Here it is. You're going to hear this right now. Being a pastor in this current landscape is whoa. It's rough. I would argue. I mean, there's nothing that we could have learned in seminary. There's nothing we can learn anywhere that would have prepared us for what everything's going on right now. And there's a lot of wounded warriors out there, for lack of a better word, that are walking wounded. And so I say all that to say, being you're one of the walking wounded as well. What do you have any like encouragement or any encouragement or words of wisdom that you'd want to pass along to everybody?
Yes. I would say that we're in a season of radical grace, and that you should extend that grace as freely to yourself as you do to your church people. That the gospel does not rest on your shoulders or my shoulders alone. Say what you have to say to your people, say it boldly and speak it with God's truth, and let the dust settle where it may, and remember that God's got it.
Woo! Said like a great 8. Well, that was. This is Angela, and you're awesome. And I hope that I hope there's more women planters, chick planters on the rolls.
They're coming
after you. Good. Tell me who they are so I can get them.
Yeah, they're coming.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Sam.
All right. Hey, y'all. Wow. I got to say it again. Angie's a great lady. I get it's such a blessing and opportunity to get to be a part of her ministry, get to be a part of her life, and get to share her with y'all, because she's a great pastor, great leader, great mom, great wife, great follower of Jesus, and an inspiration to everybody, and especially to women. If you want to know more about Angie, check out the show notes, her email, her Facebook, her Instagram. She has a hilarious Instagram, y'all. Let me tell you, she holds nothing back. And hey, we need more women church planters. And I want to invite you, right there, you. I know you're watching this, woman church planter. I know you have it in you. In fact, I've seen many of you, and I want you to step forward and be one of our planters, one of our innovators here in the Louisiana Annual Conference. And so that's why I'm inviting you to a series of what we're calling Vision Days, beginning on May 14th. There's going to be a link right there that's going to tell you all about it. And it's totally free, and it's going to be great because it's going to help you find out where your niche is at and people that you're going to reach and the places that you're going to go to reach these new people. Hey, and if you've got a minute, could you share this with somebody, whether you're a YouTube watcher or whether you subscribe to the podcast? Share it with somebody, because I want them to hear some of the neat things that we're doing here in Louisiana, but also to get introduced to some of these awesome people that are in our context that maybe might inspire them to think of a new place in their area that will then reach new people with the gospel of Jesus. So until next week, God loves you. I love you. Now go out and love the world. See ya.